Welcome everybody to the Chicken Coop, where we bring in guests and they talk about what we basically just have a conversation. Our guest today has written a book talking about how to heal America in healing, how to heal through it. Oh my goodness, my brain. How to heal with through. How to. Oh, jeez, my English. I am so sorry.
No
Um,
problem.
She's a licensed psychotherapist. She's a psychotherapist. Been practicing for a while now. Phyllis Leavitt. Now let me introduce you with the ceremonial. And with that being said, please tell us about your book because I clearly cannot English anymore.
Okay. Well, thank you. I wrote a book called America in Therapy, A New Approach to Hope and Healing for a Nation in Crisis. And the whole premise of the book is that the real healing comes from healing our mental health. And that what we're suffering from is a very marked and somewhat threatening and scary decline in our collective mental health that allows us to treat one another in a way that none of us would ever want to be treated ourselves. And that's a mental health issue. And we've been kind of programmed to believe it's a partisan issue or an ideological issue. But in my view, it's a mental health issue. And I'll just say it in one quick sentence, and then we can talk more about the specifics that you're interested in. Mentally healthy people don't kill each other. Mentally healthy don't hate each other. Mentally healthy people have a commitment to resolving conflict, which is a normal part of human existence. Mentally healthy people have a commitment to resolving conflict without hurting themselves or other people. And if they really can't resolve conflict, they do their best to leave each other alone in peace. Um, Mentally healthy people support each other's greatness. They don't starve them or exploit them or commit injustice based on someone's race, religion, gender, economic status, etc. And these things are really quite obvious and then not, because somehow we've allowed ourselves to believe that we can do to other people things that we would never want to have be done to us because somehow might equals right, or we're superior, or we have just grounds for mistreatment, or whatever it is. So my book is really about the diagnosis from a psychological point of view. How could we take what we know from the world of psychology and healing our mental health the best we can? How could we take that to national conversation? How could we implement some of the tools that actually help people heal and break the cycles of abuse and neglect in their own lives? How could we bring that to a nation? Because we're a nation of individuals. Um, and then a real quick thing I'll say, and then please jump back in, is from years and years of working with families and individuals and children and couples, most psychotherapists today are really steeped in family dynamics, and we understand because of our training and our experience. And I didn't originate this. I learned this, and then I learned it more in my practice that we're all part of a family system. Whether you're working on yourself or you're working with your spouse or you're in family therapy with your children, we're all conditioned by the role models and the beliefs and the expectations of the families we live in, and we bring those that conditioning to our adult lives. And if we've grown up with abuse and neglect, or emotional dysfunction, or some kind of addiction, or rigid boundaries, or things like that, we tend to bring those wounds into our adult life and play them out. And that's part of what's going on in our country today. But let me just add real quickly, the last thing I want to say here and is an intro is that my book is about how do we heal? Not how do we blame, but how do we heal?
Understandable, yeah. No, I was actually gonna. It's an interesting thing because um, because when you're talking about like one of the things, first of all, like mental health in this country really should be addressed. I wholeheartedly agree with you on that. It's so weird how we stigmatize,
Right,
mental health. Oh, you
right.
just can't handle the job. I'm like, dude, fuck you. No one can handle, like, everyone's got a breaking point. Get out of here with that. And
Mm-hmm.
two, this was something that was touched up on because I used to lecture for UCSD, and one of the training things that we went through actually talked about um, unconscious bias and how to
Right.
address that. And I'm just all like, wait, I have an unconscious bias. So when you're talking about like, oh, we have this family learning thing, and like what we learn from the family trickles down to us, same emotional patterns, da, 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 da.
Right.
And I'm
Right.
looking in and I'm looking inward and I'm like, oh wow, okay, I didn't think I had that kind of like oh god, if I'm driving down the road or something and like someone's not and someone has their blinkers on, like, you know, first thought, oh, that driver's definitely Asian. You know what I mean? Like something like that. So when I'm thinking like unconscious bias, I'm like, what? Okay, now I have to like try to better myself in terms of learning that. Don't get me wrong, like and I say this purely for transparency's sake. Like some of the like if I'm gonna like go the stereotypical route, it's purely for comedic purposes. That's it because I'm one of the head comedy writers for our animated content.
Oh,
But in terms of like, but that's comedy. Like I will still wholeheartedly say like, no, mental health is a thing. Burnout is real. People need to like just talk to others.
right. Right.
And yeah, like I, I, it's just so weird how it really shouldn't be stigmatized, but we did, and it's such a shame too because you know if we didn't stigmatize it so hard,
Hmm.
I, we would there wouldn't be I don't think there'd be like like the times wouldn't be as divisive as they are right
Right.
now.
Right. And I think it's a couple of things. I think the stigma is a little bit less than it might have been when I grew up, but it's still very, very widespread that looking for help from other people for your emotional state of being or some of your issues like addiction or people pleasing or workaholism or rage or withdrawal or failure to thrive in some way in your life or an inability to express your creativity, all of these things, that it actually takes courage to get help. And the interesting thing to me is that we don't have a problem going to a car mechanic if our car doesn't work. We don't have a problem going to the computer expert if our computer breaks down or shuts down. But for some reason, when people have difficulty, and we don't even have trouble going to the doctor if we're in pain in our body, but if we're in emotional pain, for some reason, we're still believing that's a sign of weakness and we should be able to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and get on with it and look good. When in fact, my experience is that I think the average person actually is suffering from something. Most of us had some difficulties growing up, whether it was in our own homes or our communities, or it had something to do with our gender or our race or our economic level. I don't know anybody who didn't suffer something that they're trying to cope with. And some of our coping mechanisms are not helpful. They're just the best we know how to do to survive, but they don't actually help us, and they don't actually help us relationally with other people.
Hmm. So how would you start with like because I believe the best way to actually start like the healing process is just with straight education, but more importantly, unbiased education.
Right,
Which is why I stay away from like CNN or Fox News. I just go for like AP or NPR to get all of the information because it's unbiased. It shows the ugliness of both sides, and that's something that should be done. I'm not just talking about news wise because both sides have done some ugly stuff, whether it
right,
be you know, whether it be I don't know from Dylan Roof to fucking founding of the Founding of the Bloods or Crips and shit like that. Like everyone's done just like evil things, but people have done truly good things, and like we
Right.
should educate them on like these things. Blah.
Well, this is one of the ways that I think the field of psychology and psychotherapy has a gift that you don't find in many other places, and that is the whole purpose of psychology and psychotherapy is not to figure out who's to blame and who's the bad guy, and because we all think somebody else is to blame at certain times. The point of the best psychology is actually to heal the relationship. It's not based on a win-lose paradigm. I win, you lose. I'm right, you're wrong. And therefore you should feel shame or blame or, then come over to my side of the picture. The whole point is that we actually hear each other, and that the goal is a win-win. We win relationship. We win cooperation. We win deep understanding and compassion for ourselves and for other people. And that's one of the big gifts that psychology has to offer. Does anybody do it perfectly? No, we're human. We do have bias that we have to look at. We do have wounds that play out in our behavior, but it's all part of taking responsibility for ourselves and trying to provide the environment where other people then want to take responsibility for themselves without shame, without blame, without feeling like they're going to be attacked, so that we can heal relationship. And that's not right now part of our national conversation. Many people are living it in their lives, but it's not part of our political, cultural, social conversation. At least I don't see it.
Me neither. Everyone's too. How do I put this? Let me. Actually, I'll use this as an example. One of the past guests we had described himself as a MAGA 2.0er. Now, when I first heard about this and I wanted to bring him on, I wanted to skewer him. But I did some souls. I was like, you know what? Fine. Let him speak his piece, and then I can skewer him. But while talking to this person, he actually was talking about, like, how expensive housing is, how this is, how the da. And he was actually making sense. And he was kind of receptive to our arguments, where he was just like, no, I feel your passion. I can honestly say I admire it, but you got to change the name. You can't go by MAGA 2.0, because MAGA itself, that term, is so toxic that no one is like, that if you want anyone to see reason, if you go by MAGA, they're just going to be like, nope. And while I could say, I did some soul searching, how do I put this? If someone, because even though the guy is reasonable, because he had MAGA in the title, it would have been so easy. It's so easy for everybody to just dismiss it, because when you see in the headline, MAGA crazy. I mean, just look at what happened in Minneapolis. That dude was a hardcore MAGA person, and he straight up murdered that. He straight up murdered her, even though she was trying to get away from that. So with all of the MAGA, like, I guess my question is, like, how do you heal that? Like, granted, you could say, oh, Doug, you said it yourself. You did some soul searching. But yeah, at the end of the day, I told him to change the name. So.
Well, I think this is where, again, I think psychology has so much to offer, because especially if you're like working with a couple or any combination of more than one person in the room, one of the things you're working with is how they talk to each other and how they listen. And because there is no working out relationship, if you don't have some skills in nonviolent conflict resolution, because otherwise you're just fighting. And I'm yelling at you to see my point of view, and you're yelling at me to see my point of view, your point of view, or somebody slamming the door and walking out, or attacking the other person. So one of the premises and one of the bases of good psychotherapy with more than one person, is that you actually learn listening skills. And the heart of that is that we help people learn how to listen the way they want to be listened to and speak the way they want to be spoken to. And that takes a lot of restraint. It takes a lot of commitment, but it's the foundation for actually hearing somebody else's point of view and understanding it. And so that's one of the things that we really need, like in Congress and in all of the levels of government, is a commitment to actually use nonviolent communication skills and practice them and tolerate the distress of people disagreeing with you, and still staying in relationship with them with the goal of coming to some kind of resolution, or again, leaving each other alone in peace if there's nothing else that can be done. But more can be resolved with those skills than the average person would like to think, if the willingness is there to actually sit at the table and tolerate hearing a different point of view. But one thing I really want to add to what you're saying, because I think it's so powerful, and I don't know how many people know this, but there are organizations that actually bring people that identify as Democrat and people that identify as Republican or red and blue or opposing parties, bring those people together and help them actually sit down and listen. And one of those organizations is called the Braver Angels, and I think they're all over the country. And that's exactly what they do. And what they have found is that when people come together from very opposing political points of view or ideological points of view, when they actually learn how to listen to each other, they find that they're not very far apart. Kind of like what you were talking about the person you talked to. When you talked to him, he didn't sound unreasonable. He was concerned about the same thing that somebody on the other side of the aisle might be concerned about. And so that listening skill is a very, very important part of therapy. It's a very important part of healing, and I think it's a very important part of culture and politics and conflict resolution that we could enact and bring to our higher levels of government and community and business and education if we wanted to, if we understood the incredible value of not waging war, of actually coming together and feeling a bond with each other and working together for our mutual good. And sometimes I know that sounds like Pollyanna or pie in the sky, but isn't that what we strive for in our homes, with our partners, with our children, in the workplace? Isn't that what we all want, is to work in an environment and live in an environment where people are actually listening to us and we listen to them and we do our best to work it out?
Go ahead, yeah. Robert.
I was going to say, going by that, it's like I feel like part of the mental issue stuff on there is definitely there, but I feel like as we stop going past individualistic to collective too easy. That's what you're saying. Like, talk to the individual. Like, when you talk to individuals, it makes sense because you're both on the same thing. But once you take that out and you like, oh, this one, like Doug said, Asian driver cut me off. No, this individual woman who happens to be Asian cut you off. But you start being like, it's a collective. All Asians cut me off. And that's like racism. It's like, I had an issue with this one black person that I knew 20 years ago. Now I have an issue with all black people that you don't even know anything about any of them.
Right.
And once we switch from individualism to collectivism, it's hard for people to go back. Like, they start doubling down. And it's easy just to be like, well, they're all like that. You don't know anyone like that.
That's right.
It's like if you want to come to me and be like, this person is like that because I've known him for 20 years and he's been the same. Okay. And then you can have the individual relationship between you two and you can resolve it. You can't resolve an imaginary collective of people that you can't talk to because you made them up in your mind.
Right.
That they're doing X, Y, Z when they're not.
I think you're totally right about that. I agree with you 100%. And I think that's one of the signs of our declining mental health, is that we're so quick to just categorize people instead of seeing them as individuals. 100%, I agree with you.
just so
Yeah, I feel
heartbreaking.
like the tribalism has kind of sorry, my voice. I feel like the tribalism has kind of just gotten ridiculous because even on top of the racism, they're still subdividing even within that just to make it reflective. So it's kind of gotten really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I know that you say in your book that you specifically want to move away from just blaming others and focus on healing. But I was just sort of curious how you kind of reconcile that idea when there are people who are promoting like real structural harm on other people because of like their race or their like sexual choices and whatnot. Because like there unfortunately are like a growing group of people now that kind of explicitly reject even the idea of empathy and like getting to know those. So how do you even kind of go about trying to go to the table with them when it seems like sometimes they don't even want to have that conversation at all?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are people you probably can't have that conversation with. But I think to your point, I think this is one of the places where psychology has so much to offer that in our offices, let's just say, because, sort of my commitment is to bring what I've learned in my office out into the world. In our offices, we don't hesitate to say that something is dysfunctional or abusive or harmful or is a way of relating to other people that is definitely not going to produce a positive result. So, but we don't call it out with shame and blame, because one of the things that I've learned as a therapist, and I think, we really don't know this, I think, as a country or as a human species in general, is that inside the perpetrator, inside the person who went and shot up the elementary school and killed 20 children, is a really hurting victim that didn't get help. People who are loved, who are safe, who are provided for, who really feel valued and supported to be their best selves in the world. And again, nobody does this perfectly, and I don't pretend that I do or anyone else does, but people who strive for that and who create homes that are safe and provide for everyone and see everyone as equally worthy, those people don't go shoot up an elementary school. You have to be really hurting. You have to be really angry or really discouraged or really hopeless to want to take your pain out on other people. So, and that doesn't mean that that's an excuse for hurting other human beings, because it's not. I think sometimes we really do have to say that person has to be restrained because they're a danger to themselves or others, but we don't have to hate them. And we can do our best, even if it's in a setting like incarceration for people who have really committed violent crimes. There can still be treatment offered. There can still be the hope that that person can have a chance to unpack what happened to them that set them up for what they did. Does that make sense? So we don't mamby-pamby around something that's really violent or hurtful or dangerous, but we also don't just want to just lock people up and throw away the key and say they're a bad seed. There's no baby that's born that's a bad seed. Something happens to people.
To take that point and take it to a dirty anime shit, I'm dropping in some Naruto. Sasuke basically grew up because he thought his brother killed his family and all his clan members. Grew up wanting to go kill his brother. He goes to actually kill his brother, finds out what actually happens. Then he wants to go kill the village for setting up his brother to make him do that. And then he got set straight, and now he's protecting that village. So that's just for the younger generations to try to get your point about, you don't know what happened to some people, and sometimes people can be set back on a set straight or the right path.
Absolutely. And I think in our culture, many more people, if they were really cared for and seen as more than their worst offenses, I think many more people could be brought back into some constructive, harmonious, and safe way of being in the world. And I think people deserve that if it's at all possible.
I think some people do deserve that, but I also think that some people definitely burn paths the amount of chances of actually learning, and that's just their personality. And like, I'm just trying to say, like, yeah, there's some people that can be saved, but I think you have to be realistic that there's some people who can't.
I agree. I think there's some people we just don't know how to help. And I think we have to make our best evaluation of what that is in order to keep the rest of society safe. I agree with that. And, you know, part of the purpose of my book is to talk about the larger social structures that we have created here in America that actually foster people becoming victimized and acting out. We have a lot of injustice in the family of America. We have a lot of inequality in the family of America. We have a lot of targeting of innocent people. And as you brought up, you know, just seeing people as part of a collective tribe rather than as individuals. We have a lot of that here in America. And on a family level, on that scale of our country or our communities or our business organizations, we need to help heal those family dynamics so that we're not just creating more victims who are enraged and turn around and act their rage out on themselves and others. So I think it's the microcosm and the macrocosm.
Well, I'll also say, like, I think going like full circle about how early we're talking about this stigmatism. I think a lot of people don't get help because, like, I know it's like just like how like my mom, well, we used to have a house cleaner that'll come in like every month and clean, but we'll clean the house before they come. And I asked her like, why? If they're gonna pay, it's like I don't want them judging me, and that's how people kind of feel like with the stigmatism. It's like, yeah,
Right.
they probably see the signs is bad, but if they go out and get help or whatever, like, oh, well, what did the neighbors say? Well, what's up on there? It's like, is this my fault because I raised a child? I don't want them thinking I'm a bad parent, bad mother, bad father, and raise this stuff on there. So they'll just try to push it under the rug and everything. And that's why no one will get help. And I also feel like Reagan didn't do a lot of help in the 80s when he shut down on the mental health hospitals. I also feel like, just like how if you get at work, you'll get medical insurance and dental. There should be also like, we'll pay for a couple of psychology sessions every month that you get to go get a tune-up, you know, deal with any of your issues and everything. Like, that will help. Just like how some kids, when you're in school, they always have the guidance counselors. And I'm not going to go like everyone was best at that. But if people weren't always like, oh, I should probably get some help, but then they're like, oh, but it's like $200 a session. And then it's like, oh, I don't know how long it's going to take. And it's like, I can't afford this. And people just get free, and it's like they could go there. Maybe they can get some insight of going on the way. And maybe they don't need to keep going to session. Like, sometimes you're just everything's so repressed that you don't know how to pack it. And then you find out like, oh, well, most of the stuff is issues with my abandonment by my father, or how felt I was treated by my mother, or all that stuff on there. And you go and talk to them. Maybe you can start being like, oh, I feel this way because this happened back in the time. And you can start to at least, you know, it's really hard because people have habits, but if you can be aware of it, just like Doug said with unconscious bias, maybe a couple of times you realize you catch yourself when you're thinking a thought, and it's like, wait, hold up, maybe it's not it, and you went on the scenario, and it wasn't that, you know, and you get enough of that stuff happening where you just be like, maybe every time this happens, I don't have to be on edge all the time.
Well, I think you make some really good points, and they speak to what I'm saying about the family of America, because what we don't invest in is people. We invest in guns, we invest in technology, we invest in bombs, we invest in, you know, high profile, whatever, making a big impression, having lots of control and influence. We invest in almost everything except people and families. And I mean, on the national level, where's the commitment to use our tax dollars to provide therapy for everybody, regardless of their income level, to provide better resources for families so they're not struggling and under so much stress, that they bring it home and maybe take it out on their spouses or their children, or they drink too much because they can't handle the pressure that they're under. These are the things that we look for in an individual family. Are we taking care of each other? Does everybody have what they need to the best of our ability to provide it? So I totally agree with you on that. Like, we really need to provide that. And the other piece of that, which I would love to see, and I know some of what I say sounds like Pollyanna and it will never happen, but what if we had leaders that said, you know, I worked on my stuff. I had some issues in my childhood and I worked on them and I became a better person. I became less prejudiced, or I became less angry, or I became less dominating. Or even if they didn't say that they went to therapy and worked on something, what if they said, you know, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have voted for that bill. It actually really hurt people. And now I'm going to try to go back to Congress and repair the mistake that I made. What an amazing role model that would be for everyone in the family of America, for our children. So yeah, I 100% agree with you. And thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate your input.
I was going to ask this, or rather, how do I put this? Because I was kind of hesitant about wanting to ask you this question. But like, Robert kind of made the point of like, oh, I can't afford to go see a psychologist, so I'll just go for the free one. Or worse, how do you combat like those people? What I mean by that is, like, let's say you're hurting and you don't know where to turn, and if I'll just use myself as a hypothetical. I'm hurting, I don't know where to turn, I'm lonely. All of a sudden, I get roped into that red pill nonsense with like fucking Andrew Tate, and I'm so thankful he got his ass kicked in that boxing match. Fuck that misogynistic prick. Anyway, but like
I don't know who he is, but anyway, go ahead.
Long story short, this guy, first of all, he's under investigation for sex trafficking. Second, he hates women. Third, he wants to be like, oh, the man has to do everything, and the women should just know their place, etc., etc. That kind of toxic nonsense, like, and that what he promoted, he's arguably the poster child for what's known as the manosphere, or rather, just places that you get bad advice in general. How do you even like? How do you start? How do you combat that? Because like, no matter how much people said, "Oh, just don't listen to his platform," people did, and they still do. And
Well, people do because he gives them an escape. It's an easy escape out where it's like shit's not going your way. It's the women's fault.
No,
You know? Like that's basically how he goes on there. It's like
oh my
it's
god.
like why it was like why are you not struggling up with women? Because women need to be taught how to do it. You need
No,
to get in the
they
gym,
fucking don't.
get
Like,
fucking
okay,
big, and fucking put them in a place. That's how he fucking gets these people who are just might be introverted. They might not have a good, like you said, family dynamics. Maybe they didn't have a good family that loved him, so he doesn't know how to express love.
Well, a
So
lot of
he
them
has
are
a hard
kids that are
time.
undeveloped, so they don't even have the full mindscape, and they fall under his influence.
Yeah, exactly. So there's such charlatans preying on these weak points of people that's like you said, you could talk to them. You could be like, hey, what are you trying to do? Like, you want this? Like, well, maybe you should find their interest stuff on there. No. She wouldn't go to prom to me because she didn't know who I was, and I stalked her for a year, and I sent her a note, and all of a sudden she rejected me, and now I'm on the manosphere getting fucking huge, blaming all women because they're whores. That's how he sells it.
Sorry, like I was livid. Like I am. Oh,
Yeah, you see how it gets on your skin. Like the people who know what's up and have the proper thing and can see through it, you can easily see through it. But the people who don't, the people who don't have those like social nets around them, that someone could be like, hey, this is not exactly what's wrong. You're looking at it a different way. You got this charlatan coming in. Hey, nothing's wrong with you. You're perfect. What's wrong is these other people.
Do you want to speak to that, Dugam. I don't know how you say your name. I'm sorry. Is that how
It's
you say your
fine.
name?
Most people call me Doug. It's just
Oh,
I
Doug.
can't
Okay.
stand that kind of mentality whatsoever. Because I can honestly say, like, growing up, I was a nerd, socially awkward, and the family unit that I was with, yeah, I wasn't perfect, but like one day I just looked at myself like, yeah, no, I'm going to somehow change that nonsense, and I did it on I did it on my own, but like um I wish I could say I went to a professional psychologist or but like at the end of the day, if I were growing up like around now and I saw the manosphere, I'd still nope, I still wouldn't. I'd still
It's a bad, Doug,
Yeah.
because just like you, I grew up like nerdy, all that stuff on there. I never really drunk until I got to college at 18. Just did kind of LAN parties, all that stuff, right? But what I did when I decided to go to college was like, I saw like, hey, what I'm doing right now is not necessarily working. I need to actually open up. And I went more like, you know what? I'm going to say yes to this party, even though normally I would say no because I just want to be alone, right? Go there. And I found, talk to people. And then all of a sudden, have all these friends. I didn't need someone to be like, the reason I didn't do it was because of this ex. No, the reason I didn't do it was because I knew myself was I didn't want to open myself up because I was afraid. And as soon as you did a little bit, all of a sudden, all these other people come in, and that's his onus on you. And like you just need, like you said, psychology. Maybe just need someone to push you because some people can't
Mhm.
necessarily be like, I know myself. They
Right.
need an external locus.
Well,
And that's not bad. Only problem is bad is when you have people like him who are douchebags that come as charlatans saying like this is how it should be, instead of someone who's listening to you and giving you subtle suggestions, not telling you how it should be.
I think that if I can just add to what you both are saying, I would say that people who, like, you couldn't convince me or my husband that what that man is saying is true, because we don't have that kind of wounding in our childhood. We have wounding in our childhood that it got expressed other ways, but we don't have that kind of wounding where we just want to hate one segment of society. But there are many people who do. And that's why I think that we really have to address these issues on a social and political level as well as the individual level. There are many people in our society today, because of the experience they're having in their homes and in their communities, who don't feel like they belong anywhere and are wanted or are valued or are seen as having some kind of a valuable contribution to make. They feel invisible and they feel powerless, and they're more likely to align with a bully than just because that's a way to belong and a way to feel some kind of power. And these are all psychological dynamics that we see playing out in families and in communities. When people really feel like they belong to something safe and loving and kind and supportive, they don't ascribe to the kind of manosphere things that you're talking about. So I think, and there's a lot of that out there. So what I would say is talk to the people who can actually hear something. You might not be able to talk to that guy. He may not be open for a conversation, but how many people in your life are open to a conversation? How many people don't even need to be convinced? They just need to feel you being present to them and caring about them and being interested in their life. I mean, I think some of it is a real grassroots movement of we impact one person at a time. And it's somewhere along the line in our society, I hope we reach that tipping point where more people are advocating care and listening and talking and working things out than not. Are we there? No. And it's scary. And I think you're talking about the really scary symptoms that we're showing on a mental health level that I think as a society as well as individuals, we really need to take seriously, because many of these people that you're talking about are armed and they're dangerous. And if we really want to be safe, we have to change the whole tone of our country and the way we run things, as well as change things in our own personal lives and do our own healing work. The access to all of this is doing our own healing work.
What do you? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
What do you think? I guess progress would look like in that national healing. Like, how would we be able to tell that? I guess the therapy is working.
Yeah, I think. Well, I say this, and sometimes I really do feel like I sound like Pollyanna, that this is just never going to happen, and maybe it won't. But I'm not going to give up talking about it. When people come to therapy, and so I kind of use that as the model when I'm talking about the country. When people come to therapy, they don't bring guns to the session.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. There's no therapy possible if people are shouting each other, calling each other's names, threatening, slamming doors, and walking out. So the very first necessity for actually working things out and doing it differently is leaving all of your weapons at the door, meaning all of your emotional and psychological weapons at the door. And that might be the work to begin with. How do we actually get people to sit down and listen and talk with respect, the same way that they want to be listened to? We all want to be respected and heard, whether you agree with me or not. I want you to hear me. You want me to hear you, whether I agree with you or not. And like you're saying, Doug, that, when it comes down to it, most people actually really want the same things, but we don't get there unless we learn how to listen and actually talk with an open heart and an open mind, and with the goal of repairing our relationships. So how would we know that our country was on the right track? If we role modeled actually listening to one another and leaving our weapons at the door. And, I know this sounds like Pollyanna, because what's happening in our country today is more and more arms, more and more aggression, more and more assault. And these are the symptoms of an abusive family. When people are murdering each other or beating each other or blasting each other, with shame and blame and publicizing how horrible each other are or whatever they're doing, we call that an abusive family. And I say the family of America is acting like an abusive family in many, many ways. And of course, there are many fabulous people in America not doing that. But that's not blame and shame. That's just calling out. It's like saying, if you keep eating something that's toxic, you're going to get sick and die. We're eating and feeding each other toxic psychological, emotional, and mental health food. And it's making us sick, and we're killing each other.
Yeah.
And
did I answer your question?
Absolutely.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
We are coming close to time, so I'm just going to end it like this. While I wholeheartedly agree with you, Phyllis, on every single point. Honestly, I think the biggest challenge would be to go in as a blank slate, check your emotions at the door, and that's a lot harder said than done. I'm literally living proof of that. As when Robert was talking about the manosphere, I was getting heated because
right.
I just do not like how they all blame women. It's fucking anyway. All right, repressing. Okay.
But it's not that you're not allowed to have your feelings, because we do. We're human. Things make us angry. Things make us frightened. Things make us sad. Things make us feel powerless. It's not that you're not going to have your feelings. It's that you learn to restrain them in a setting where you're trying to actually have a dialogue with another person to work something out. You restrain them. I might be really angry about what you say, but it's not going to further our healing, our rupture, and coming back together as human beings who can work together if I just blast you. I have to learn how to say, I don't agree with you. This is how I feel, and I'm hoping you can listen to me. Or it might be something different. Maybe the facilitator needs to say, what set you up to believe that? How did you come to believe that all women are at fault for blah, 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 blah? What did you learn about men and women growing up? Was there a woman in your life who hurt you, and now she's sort of the blanket you put over all women? there's an inquiry that can happen so that people start to open up and they start to make connections. Oh, I felt this way because blah, blah happened, because my mother did this, or my father did that, or my father told me all women were blah, blah, or, whatever. And people start to put the pieces of themselves back together in a new way. I saw an incredible documentary that was interviewing men in prison, men who had done very violent crimes, a lot of murder. And when they were talked to about what their life had been before they went to prison, we're talking massive child abuse, abandonment, neglect, witnessing murders that they never got help for. And so their rage had to come out somewhere, and it came out in a way that was, terribly violent and hurtful. But are they bad people at their core? No, they're really hurting and in pain. And we have to take responsibility for that as a society, as well as in our own lives. Anyway, yeah.
Well, with that being said, thank you so much, Phyllis, for coming on to the Chicken Coop. Please send me your link so I can put it in the description. As far as all of you, thank you so much for listening to the Chicken Coop. Remember, you can listen to us on Amazon Music, YouTube, and Spotify. You all take care. Later on.